All right. I think we've got quite a few in our audience today. We're very excited to be here with you to hear a little bit about Microsoft 365 basics for end users. This is our first session of several. You'll see many of these upcoming later in the year. My name is Julianne Hemingway. I'm actually based in the US, and I have my colleague Midhun with me. Midhun, would you like to say just a few minutes about yourself?
Of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Midhun. I'm the Technical Service Manager at Storyals, and I'll be here joining with Julianne.
Wonderful. And we also have a couple of our Storyals colleagues here. We have Kate also. She's also based in Spain, and she'll be helping us with any questions you might have. You'll see we do have, you should notice that there's a Q&A icon in our meeting window, so please feel free to use that throughout our session to ask any questions, and Kate will be there to help us answer them. So Midhun and I today, we're going to go through a few basics with you on Teams, Outlook, and SharePoint and OneDrive. That will be our focus today. But I'd like to just quickly introduce in case you hadn't had an access or used some of the tools that you do have available to you. So in the top corner, you'll see in the very top, we have our Copilot Chat. And Copilot Chat is the free version, I'll say, that comes with your Microsoft license. So if your organization has turned that on for you, you will see that you have Copilot Chat, and we will talk a little bit about that today at the end of our session. Then we have Teams. We'll talk about that today. Loop, Stream, Forms, OneNote, OneDrive, and our very good friends Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. We also have SharePoint, Whiteboard, which we're using here today, Outlook. So we're going to focus, as I said, on Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, and the new Outlook today. So I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Midhun. He's going to talk to you a little bit about SharePoint and OneDrive. What are some of the differences? So we'll focus in on that area right now. And Midhun, I'm going to hand that over to you.
Thank you. The main difference between OneDrive and SharePoint is OneDrive is for personal documents within the company, and SharePoint is when you share your documents with the rest of the organization. So think of OneDrive as your local hard drive on your PC. So you have documents, you save it on your desktop or your documents or downloads, and it's right there. You don't share with anyone unless you do, but no one has access to it. No one has access to any of your files unless you go ahead and share it with them. It usually does not involve you. It's not usually a group project. It's mostly just something you alone would work on, and you don't want anyone else to see. But SharePoint, on the other hand, is something you would share files with. For example, you're working on a group project or a project that you want multiple people from your organization to be involved in. And that's where you share your files. I mean, Teams actually SharePoint is the backbone of Teams. So every time you share a file, let's say in a team in Teams, it's actually uploaded to the SharePoint site. And that's how everyone who is a member of that team can access that file and edit and make changes to it in real time. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I know sometimes I do choose to share a document, though, from OneDrive. When would you say is a best practice around when I should share something from my OneDrive or when I should put it into a team or into a SharePoint folder?
Exactly. So like I said, if it's OneDrive, if it's specifically just you and let's say one other person you want to temporarily give access to, use it in OneDrive, especially if it's not a long-term project. Maybe you just want someone to proofread it, for example, for a couple hours. Oh, just going to put it in your OneDrive, share it for like give them a one-time link. You can choose expiry date and expiry time, have them proof check it, proofread it, and give it back to you, or add anything that they want to do it, or edit on it, and you're good to go. But if it's a long-term project, especially if it's something you want, let's say not just one, maybe a group of people to work on at the same time, then I would highly suggest you use SharePoint. That way, if you have a SharePoint library, everyone who's a member of that SharePoint library will have access to that file. And that SharePoint library can be there for like, let's say, a month or a year or even 10 days. Doesn't matter. As long as once you're done with the project, you can either archive that site or skip it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, you know what? One of the things that I have run into a few times, Midhun, is I've started a document in my OneDrive, and then I've realized actually I do need all of my colleagues to start collaborating on that with me. So I'll go ahead and put that document into SharePoint, and then I've made changes to the document and realized that no one's seeing them. And what 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 would you suggest? It seems like that reminding myself that if I do something in OneDrive and I copy it over, it's a copy. Isn't that correct? It's not actually the same document, correct? It's not the main document. I would be
Right.
putting a copy of it in SharePoint or in Teams.
Right. Yeah, it is not the same document because you'll be copying over a document, not moving it per se. So if you copy it over, then I would suggest you start using the document that was in the SharePoint site. That way you can collaborate at the same time and you don't confuse yourself working on two documents at the same time.
Yes, that seems so. That's happened to me a few times. So I have to remember that I should either give it a separate name or physically move it, as you
Just
suggested.
move
So
it.
that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's probably a good best practice to have.
exactly.
Now, the other thing that I always kind of struggle with is I'm not very organized, to be honest. So when I go to my OneDrive and I've actually created a document, sometimes I really struggle with finding it. Do you have any suggestions or good ways maybe you can share with us your screen and show us a few things that you can, best
Of
practices
course.
on searching for documents?
There are so many ways to search for a document. I will give you one example. Let me just share a profile. Here we have a demo account. And let me just say, so here I'm actually working on a demo account named Sanda. So she, along with Ulrika, has worked on a document story on a blog article that they both have been working on. And at the same time, I don't know where it is. So, but I know the name of the document. So it's a story of, and I'll drop in here. There you go, right there.
Oh, fantastic.
Just like that. As long as you have access to the file, you will find it there. And even if you don't find it here, suddenly you can just click on show more results. It might show up as long as you have access to that particular file. If not, you can again ask the original owner of the file, could you please share it? And if they share it, even you don't even have to have the link. You can just immediately see it here. It pops up. And since I just opened it, it's there on my recent documents.
Oh, fantastic. And I noticed
Yeah,
you've got some quick access buttons there. Will you go into a little more detail about how I can use those?
of course. So here we have all, as in everything I worked with. So all documents you have access to and everything is shared with you, recently open, which is pretty self-explanatory. Shared, everyone that shared files with you. Favorites, if you pin or you star a favorite, a particular document, let's say this one, it's right there. So you can always access it. Even if it's not edited for, let's say, a couple of months, it'll always be there. If I add, you can add also a content filter. Let's say I want to add a PowerPoint document. All the PowerPoint, in this case, Sandra does not have any PowerPoint file shared with her, so she doesn't have any PowerPoint document shared here. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. But you have, let's say, a Word. There you go, all the Word documents. Or you can even add a filter on location, if it's cloud or local or attachments. These are all the cloud documents. You can also have who exactly any document that's shared by someone else, or if it's owned by someone else and it's not by you. For example, in this case, the document I showed you was actually owned by Ulrika. So here we go.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for that.
Of course.
Well, with that, I will go into a little bit on Teams.
Before we move to Teams, Julianne, we have a good question in the chat that I
Great,
want to bring up to you guys.
please.
So Joanna is asking, I sometimes have a problem that I start in OneDrive, and then when I upload it to SharePoint, it still has restricted access. How can I prevent it?
Midhun, that's a great question for you.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's probably because the particular SharePoint site doesn't have, you have not shared that site with maybe anyone else. So that particular SharePoint site needs to have, you need to have members. For example, if you want to add someone else to that particular SharePoint site, you add that person to as a member to that SharePoint site. Or if it's a group of people, you add all of those group of people. Maybe if you have, I'm not so sure how it is in your organization, maybe you have an Azure AD group, you can add that group to that SharePoint site. Or if you have a marketing group, probably a sales group. As such, once they have access to it, or they are a member of that SharePoint site, they all have access to that particular file.
Great question. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for answering that, Midhun. Hopefully
of
that
course.
helps clarify a little bit for you. In the meantime, I'm not sure if you've noticed in Teams, we're going to talk about a few of the new things that have happened. So as you can see up here in the top right-hand corner, you can choose the way you view your calendar in Teams. So this is our very familiar way, as you can see, but you can also turn on to the new calendar, which now look and feels very much like our Outlook calendar. In addition, it shows very clearly what your work plan is. So if you're working remote, this gives your colleagues the ability to see whether or not you're going to be physically in the office and make the decision, should I be in the office today? And lovely, you even get the weather of where your location is. So lots of great things. And of course, you can create meetings directly from Teams, just like you can from Outlook. So that is one of my favorite new things about about Teams. In addition, you can now schedule a post very similar to Outlook. So they've really tried to mimic a lot of the things that you do in Outlook in Teams so that when you're working internally in Teams, you have that same feel and different feature set that you have available to you in Outlook. So if you wanted to start a post, but you wanted to make sure that it got sent at a particular time that would work best for that user or your colleagues to actually see that post. We work in a very global, organization. So a lot of times I want to make sure that that post gets sent at a time that my colleagues will be able to see it, not kind of in the middle of the night. So once you've created your post, if you click on the plus sign, you now have the ability to schedule the message. You can also, just as you did before in the past, you can set delivery options. And of course, you can attach files, as Midhun said earlier. By attaching the files, you're actually adding them to this particular team and channel, so everyone there now has access to it. So that's one of the new things that have happened. In addition, one of the things that's really helped us is that you used to only have a certain size pane on this left-hand side. So you could only see you can only see so much of a channel. So you had to be very careful about how you named your channels. But now they've given us the ability to really make that as big as we want. And that way we can see the entire channel. In addition, as you create new teams, if that's something that you do on a regular basis, in the past, it forced you to have a general channel. Now, when you create a team, you can create all of your own channels and it does not force you to have a general channel anymore. They are still alphabetically listed, so you do have to keep that in mind as you're, choosing the team names if you want something to be higher up on the list. But of course, you can always pin. As you can see, we have here pinned several different sections of different channels and teams that we work in more regularly. And as you can see, then we've got the remaining teams, because I'm sure that you probably have quite a few teams that you're working in today. So that's just a little bit. I wanted to spend a little bit of time here on some of the new things in Teams that you might have access to. Now we'll go back to the whiteboard. Oh, I do want to show one more thing. I think it's quite fun. So as you see, we're in a Teams meeting. So you do have some additional things that are available to you. I'm not sure if you've used this, but this is one of my favorite things to do when I'm collaborating, especially when we're trying to brainstorm and we're not all in the same room together. I love to start a whiteboard. So, and you'll see that at the bottom, if you haven't played much with whiteboard, at the very bottom, we have our little arrow, which allows you to select anything that's on the whiteboard. The hand allows you to move the whiteboard around. And then of course we have, and as you can see, perfect, this is exactly what I wanted. Please feel free to go in and put things in the whiteboard. As you can see, all of us, even though you're external, we have the ability to all work together. And then you can have text, you can put in reactions, comments, you can also add different shapes, sticky notes. There are, if you click on the three dots just to the right of the circle and the square, you'll see that you also have the ability to add images, documents, loop components, video clips, or links to particular websites. In addition, you have a whole slew of templates. So if you click on those three dots, you'll see that. You won't see that on my screen now, but you will see that if you click on it. So this is a fantastic way to collaborate with your team members when you're not all together. And you do have an unlimited space with Whiteboard. So you can, as you can see, you've got your plus and minus at the bottom right hand of your screen. So you can make things smaller or bigger. So you can see more of the whiteboard. And of course, you can use the hand to pan over and see other things that are being done across the whiteboard. So we always find this quite fun. Now, the only challenge that you have with this is that when your external users, when you finish the meeting, they will no longer have access to this whiteboard. So you would need to export it as a PNG or a TIFF or a GIF, and then you could then forward it to your team members, but they would not have access to it after the meeting is over. So just keep that in mind as you are doing the collaboration. Of course, whoever has started the whiteboard session, anyone in that organization that's in the same organization will always be able to have access to this whiteboard. So I always find that's a little bit fun, a little fun exercise that we can all do together and see how we can all work together in the whiteboard. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and close the whiteboard down now, but we'll happily take a PNG of this for you. So I am going to move on to a few new things in Outlook. So please don't hesitate to ask any questions if you have anything how many, just out of curiosity, if you want to raise your digital hand, are using the new Outlook? We've got a couple here. Fantastic. Was it a tough, it probably was a little bit of a tough transition. I know a lot of people were not very happy with the new Outlook, but there's some really great things about it. And I will now share my screen and we'll look at some of those new things. So the most notable thing that you'll see or you'll notice and recognize is that there's no more send and receive. So the good news is it is much quicker and it will update a lot faster and you don't have to click that button anymore, which is really helpful. In addition, the look and feel is now a lot more consistent. As we just showed you in Teams, that look and feel of that calendar looks the same as it does now in Teams. We've got consistency across the web, mobile, and the desktop application. And it's got a seamless integration of a lot of the smart AI capabilities. So if you do choose to go down the path of having a paid Copilot license, the new Outlook, you're going to have a lot more features available to you. So of course, the Copilot license does work in the classic Outlook, I'll call it, but you will have a lot more that you can do with Copilot as the paid license in the new Outlook. So it's worth moving over to the new Outlook if you think that you're going down the path of having a Copilot license. In addition, you can see we've got smarter scheduling. So when you do create a new invite and you add invitees, you can now quickly see when everyone is available. So it's very quick to find that perfect time, especially if you're in different time zones and it's hard and you're not looking at everyone's calendar at the same time to try to find that time slot that works best for you. So that's one of my one of my favorite things, especially as I mentioned, we're in time zones across the globe. So it's quite difficult sometimes to find the right time slot for everyone. In addition, one of my favorite things I love to do is one of my favorite tools. And now when you pull up in the top right-hand corner, just to the left of the bell, you'll see that what comes up is all of the tasks that I have available. And what I can do is I can literally click and drag it to my day so that I make sure that it actually becomes a task in my calendar. Because I know a lot of us don't necessarily want to have to do open all the time. So this really helps in order to pull up all your different tasks and make sure that you get them done during that day, especially if they're important and you need to get them finished. In addition, of course, you can take quickly look at your calendar. This works well if you're already in email and you're focused on a particular email, but it lets you go right to your calendar so you can prepare for your meetings and see all the different events and things that you need to get done today. So it quickly allows you to do that while you're still in your actual email. In addition, the classic Outlook does have this, but I feel that it works a little better in the new Outlook. You can access all of the multiple different applications directly from Outlook. So you don't have to leave Outlook in order to go to OneDrive or Excel or your bookings or PowerPoint. So it gives you the ability to add different applications along the side here. If you're focused on a lot of email tasks that you're doing throughout the day, you can quickly access multiple different applications directly from Outlook. And we'll see if my computer, and see, it immediately takes me to my OneDrive. So this would look and feel exactly as if I were in the web and I went to office.com and pulled up my OneDrive. You can see now similar to what Midhun showed you earlier, I can see all my recent different types of Word, PowerPoint, Excels, PDFs, and who's been working on them. In addition, I can look at my own files and review where things are and where we're up to date. Okay. Midhun, did you want to add anything? I know you have some favorite things on Outlook too. Is there anything that I missed that you quite like?
Yes, I actually like, I don't know if you mentioned Copilot. I'm sure not everyone has Copilot, but that's probably the best feature about the new Outlook that is not completely there in the classic Outlook. The ability to use draft and rewrite emails, but only
Yes.
those who have a Copilot premium license.
Well, and that's a good point. So that leads us to, we are going to talk a little bit about Copilot chat and some things that you can do with that. So that gives me a good excuse to dive over to Copilot chat. So you'll notice in your Teams, and I'm going to share now my Teams window again. How many of your organizations have enabled Copilot chat and how many are using them? Maybe a digital hand.
That will be the
Got
free
a
version
few?
of Copilot.
Yes, the Copilot that's
That's
not
included with your license. Yeah.
exactly. Oh, good. We've got quite a few. That's great. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Copilot chat. And I'm going to it directly in my Teams window, but of course you can get to it through the web by going to office.com and then also selecting the Copilot from there. And that will then give you the access to the same window. So as you can see, you've got quite a few prompts it gives you right off the bat. In addition, you can go to Microsoft prompts. One of the things I like to do, I have quite a few similar prompts that I use quite regularly. And so being able to save a prompt, can you help me to create an image? So I'm going to copy and paste this, but you could create your own prompt if you wanted. And I'm going to put this in the post and I would love to see you all try this if you've got that Copilot chat. And if you have Copilot chat, it generates a single image. When you get the Copilot paid license, it will give you 4 different options of images. Now you can continue, if you've been using Copilot chat, you'll notice that basically I have started a conversation with Copilot here. So I've asked it to create this log cabin with a stream running by at sunset. And as you can see, I can continue to refine this image by maybe making it a winter scene, maybe adding some animals. So this is a conversation you're having with it. You want to think about Copilot as literally like your assistant. You would continue to have a conversation with Copilot and helping to continually refine the response that you get back. Obviously, prompting is quite an art form, so and a little bit of science in there, but you really want to be as detailed as possible if you know what you're trying to achieve or trying the response you're trying to get back. The more data you give it, the better the response you'll get back. The other thing you'll notice is I did make a change to this initial photo, and instead of taking the original photo and then adding something to it, it always generates a brand new photo. Now, the good news is you don't lose that photo. You can always go back and download the previous one or one of the previous ones if that's something if you decide to go back to that one. So in addition, one of the things I use it a lot for is if you have a team meeting that has been either recorded from a video perspective or transcribed, you have the ability to then copy and paste that into Copilot chat to give you summarized to look at action items. So we're going to do that. So I'm going to go back to my meeting that we had. Hopefully you can see this. Midhun, can you see my recap meeting? Perfect.
Yeah.
I'm going to view the recap. So now you can see this is what happens when this is the window that pops up when you have a meeting recap. You can see that it was recorded, not just transcribed. You can also see the notes. So when you create your original meeting invite, you have the ability in both Outlook and in Teams to add an agenda and get yourself set up with meeting notes when you actually have the meeting. So this is a great way. Now this is a loop component, and we'll talk about that in one of our other sessions. But as you can see, this meeting we had our agenda. There were no additional notes taken, but there were some follow-up tasks. And then we were also able to assign them to different people who were within the meeting. But you can also, if you weren't able to attend, you can go to the transcript. If you were the organizer or co-organizer, you would have the ability to download this. But in case you're not, you can copy it. So if I wanted to copy everything,
It's probably a better idea to just download it since it's
yes,
stopped.
absolutely. So if you have the ability, but I know a lot of times if you were not the organizer of the meeting, you wouldn't be able to download it. You would need to just copy it. But then that allows me to go back to my Copilot. Can you summarize or add? Can you create, could you create meeting notes from this transcript? And what you'll also notice that, so it's creating some meeting notes for me. So this gives you the ability, it's a couple extra clicks that you have to go through if you don't have the Copilot paid license, but this Copilot chat has huge abilities. So if that's what you have today, you've got great access to be able to do many different things with this. So you can see it now has created meeting notes for me that I could use if I needed to send out meeting notes. If I was in charge of doing that, it would give me the ability to do that. I can also ask additional questions about this. Were there any follow-up tasks? Did I have any tasks? Was I mentioned in this meeting? So this gives me a lot of ability to do many different things with Copilot. And I know, Midhun, you have a few favorite things, so I'm going to pass it over to you. And I thought you might be able to share a few of the things that you like to use Copilot chat with.
Of course. But you already covered one of my favorite ones. It was
Oh, I
actually
did.
copying the transcript.
I'm sorry, I stole that from you.
No worries. Okay, so here, I'm just going to go back to the demo code that I used before. And I'm just going to click on, so I don't see Copilot, just go to apps and Copilot. A good tip would be to pin this on the left-hand side, so it's always there. So whenever you go to office.com, you can I'll just click on Copilot, it's always there. So yeah, one of my favorite things is using the recommendations that's already here, because they're pretty good they're based on what you're already working on within the company. So everyone might have a different look for all of these prompts. Another thing I like to do is look at the prompt gallery. So if I click on here, right underneath, bottom right, you see view prompts, and we have something called Microsoft prompts. So I can just ask anything I want to. You can use any of the suggested prompts. For example, let's just say I want to learn something new. How to write a request for a new proposal. And it just goes ahead and gives me something. Which is great. There's something else you can do. For example, there's something called your prompts. These are saved prompts that you probably have created a while ago. So let's say I want to create an image, a winter house, say. I'm doing it again, but that's all I can think of.
That's okay.
So what you can do, you can actually go ahead and click on Save Prompt. It's something, so when you click on Save Prompt, you can just create a prompt that will be saved in the prompt gallery. So here I'm just going to name it as the same as my prompt. Save it. I go back to View Prompts, Your Prompts. It's right there. So every time you create, let's say it's something, a prompt you regularly do. You always constantly, almost every other day, write this prompt. So rather than always copy pasting, you could just click on Your Prompts, click on the prompt, and it'll automatically take you there. So that's one of my favorite features. Apart from that was, of course, the transcription. And I also like that everything you do is always saved here. So let's say yesterday you wrote a prompt and you have all the answers, but you forgot to save them. You can just click on the previous prompt and you can see they're all saved. So some of them are saved, some of them are not. So this one is saved. You can see I have a thread on Monday that I actually created a similar image, and it's all saved here. Here I ask what LLM stands for. It's right there. So if you forget to copy and paste or save any of these, it's already saved here. And this is all in Copilot Chat. You don't even need a premium Copilot license for this. Of course, if you don't want to, you can just go ahead and just go delete them. You don't want to save a copy, you don't want to save anything, no worries, just delete them.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about pages?
Of course. So let's say you want to actually right here, I ask LLM, I want to save it and create an editable page based on this. It's similar to notes, but it's saved in Copilot. It's called a page. If I click on view all pages, I can show you the past page. So everything you add as edited page will be automatically saved here. So this is a way to save something that you have prompted Copilot, and then you can go further ahead and just edit it. You can add your own, you can continue this, let's say this page, write your own text or images or whatnot, and you can continue working on this, or you can go back, create a new page and do the same again.
Can you share these pages, Midhun, or is this just for your eyes only?
Of course you can share them. So if you click on share here, I'm gonna page link. There you go. Copy and paste it to anyone within the organization.
And that's just
based on,
internally, correct? Is that just internally?
That's right.
I couldn't share them externally?
You can, if the organization has enabled external sharing, you can enable external sharing. If I click on settings, in this case, here, it's disabled, so you cannot. But I'm not so sure if you can, but over here you cannot because we have restricted it. Or you can just choose who you want to share it with. So existing access, or if it's just one particular person, you can just name that person and send it to them. Set expiry date, edit. If you just want them to view and not make any changes to the document, to the page, you can do so. This is based on loop. So if I click on share here and click on copy component, you can copy these components and paste it anywhere. For example, I'm going to copy this and put it in Teams. I don't want to use sharing link. I just want to paste it in with someone in chat. So I go to Teams, I go to a chat, then I'm going to go to Ulrika, and then Control V, paste it there, and then send it over. See, right there. It's all sent to her. And you can real-time edit this. So every time, so if Ulrika makes any changes to that, I can see right away. It's instant. And at the same time, it will reflect in the original page you saw earlier. It will be updated at the same time. Yeah.
Fantastic. And just a note, LLM, as you can see, it stands for Large Language Model, which is what Copilot is based on. That's how Copilot learns and is able to help you and give you good responses. We'll probably talk about that in one of our other sessions. We do have some great other webinars and blogs on our website if you are interested in learning more about Copilot Chat, Copilot, agents, any of those things, but we will be bringing them up as we get further into our other sessions that we'll have later on. So our next session will be in September of 2025. So we'll give everyone the summer because we know it gets quite busy during the summer season, but we will be having another session and with a focus on a few of the other applications. So you'll probably get a placeholder in the next couple of months and look out for that as an opportunity to join our next session. And with that, I will close it out. And we really appreciate you joining us today. I hope you've gotten something good out of this that you can use in your workday today and moving forward. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week. Thank you again all for joining us today.
Thank you all so much.